we're seeing all the individual sectors from energy to metals to agricultural trade higher, because the trade uncertainty has multiple different layers of impact. If we see the metal market, then it's obviously the need for safe havens, but it's also the need to perhaps hoard commodities closer to where you are using them, because of the global trade relations seems to be breaking down somewhat. So that's adding a broad spectrum of support. Then we have something like energy, where there's some where the US clearly would like to see lower prices, but that could have a negative impact on production. So that's also creating some friction. We have the agricultural market, where US is a major exporter of corn and soybeans to China. Could that be impacted by China's countermeasures against the US once the tariffs are being introduced on imports into US from China? So we're seeing this uncertainty play its part across the board. If we look at the energy transition, you can call it decarbonization, but I'll just call it the electrification of the world. That is an ongoing process that in the coming years will increase demand for power around the world. So electricity will be key. And what does electricity need? They need first and foremost to be transferred, and that is required. For that to happen, we need copper, we need aluminium, but we also need the power to be produced. And for that, we need obviously coal, which we want to get we reduce dependency of. But that leaves us with natural gas, and we're seeing increased demand for gas in the coming years. So gas, especially US gas prices, because they are historically very cheap. US gas prices, aluminium, copper, and some of the battery metals will all benefit from this transition. So these trends are going to stay with us. If you look into the future in terms of agricultural pricing, it's mostly the supply side the market will be focused on and worried about, because the demand side for food commodities is relatively stable. We know how many people, how many mouths around the world that needs to be fed. We know how big the herd that needs to be fed, animal feed is as well. But what we don't know is the impact that climate change will have on supply and production around the world. And then obviously adding to that also tariffs and their potential impact on supply between countries. So with that in mind, in the coming years, demand is obviously dependent overall on the level of growth, but then ultimately supply is the key one. Any disruptions can in shorter or longer period of time send prices higher, and that can force changes in consumer habits, like we've seen a little bit with cocoa prices, where consumers have started to scale back demand simply because prices have reached a level where they're very high relatively to the historic price levels.